So my name is Ben Butler. I'm the Principal Business Development Manager for Cloud Innovation Centers and Accelerators. And I have with me Paul Jurasin, who is one of our customers at one of our Cloud Innovation Centers. So we'll have Paul speak in a little bit about how they're using aspects of our culture of innovation within Cal Polytechnic University. So I always say here, it seems like with Amazon, if you ask the question, what is Amazon or who is Amazon, we kind of have an identity crisis. Who are we really? Are we a retailer? We started off with physical books, selling them online, but then we've also manifested into a marketplace of everything, as well as a logistics company with Fulfillment by Amazon, and a publishing studio as well, and with Amazon Prime Video and Prime Music. So it seems like we're a little bit all over the place, but there is a method to the madness and why we service the customers and enter the markets that we do, and how we have a rapid pace of innovation, and how that permeates throughout our over 560,000 employees throughout the world. So I'll talk a lot about what Jeff mentions within his press articles, interviews, and stakeholder letters, because really the culture drives from the top down. And one of the things Jeff says about innovation or invention in general is the most radical forms of it are the ones that empower others, to unleash the creativity of others to build on our platform. And there's several examples of that. In the early days is to create sellers for e-commerce on top of our platform with Amazon.com, as well as authors for self-publishing with these Kindle self-publishing. And then, of course, here today with Amazon Web Services, building out platforms of your own on top of AWS. One of the other things that Jeff does after every annual shareholder, he attaches the 1997, the very first shareholder letter. And what he mentions here is a couple of things that I'll just highlight, is that tomorrow, through personalization and online commerce, will accelerate the very process of discovery. It wasn't to be the world's biggest bookstore. That was one of the milestones to achieve, but we really wanted to create mass personalization and customization, and using the internet at scale to create real value for its customers. And it's really this focus on customers that's the core of our culture of innovation. And then also I'll mention here, it's day one for the internet, and if we succeed or execute well, it'll be day one for Amazon.com. And we'll talk a little bit more about our day one philosophy in a little bit. So of course we know that Amazon started with physical books, and you see the Kindle here. But we also, our innovation has manifested across many different domains, from drone development, video streaming, Kindle reading, and obviously cloud computing. And we'll talk about some of these innovations as we go through the presentation. One of the other things from either analysts and media, we've recognized that innovation, rather than the application of capital and labor, is really what makes the world go round, and having the step functions of huge growth and economic development. And also Fast Company releases every year the top 50 most innovative companies, of which we topped the list last year. So I've given a couple snapshots of our innovation, but really our core value in our mission is that we want to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. And with millions of customers, with millions of different use cases and applications, our innovations and services and products can come in many shapes, forms, and sizes. And our commitment really is to make our customers' lives easier. So if you look at that from that lens of why we go into all those different products, it's really to focus on the customer and making their lives easier. And our innovation starts with working backwards. We start with the customer and work backwards from it. What is the experience we're trying to drive for the customer? What is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the pain point we're trying to get rid of? Or how can we delight our customers? And then from that type of vision, how do we work backwards to get to that point? I'll talk about a couple of the innovations that we have at Amazon in general. This is a fulfillment center. So we don't call it a warehouse or distribution center. We fulfill orders on behalf of our customers. We treat filling an order as if we were building a product. And it uses a lot of machine learning as well as linear optimization to be able to organize. It looks like everything's all over the place, and there's a sense of organized chaos. So I spent a week in Phoenix in one of these fulfillment centers to kind of get the experience of what it's like to be an associate. And when you go through this is an older generation of a fulfillment center. And what you actually have a little cart, and you have a little gun with a little scanner, and it says, go place this product into this bin, or go pick this one up if you're placing an order. And you've got thousands of workers all doing that. So it looks like a massive shopping spree, but it's all organized in terms of where you need to go. And actually your gun says, okay, pick up this ream of paper and try to do it in 23 seconds. And you actually go run around and you have to find it. It's gamification. They have dashboards and leaderboards. They have a standard process of how this works. This was the initial ways to optimize how we get humans to fulfill the orders. But as time went on, we went through iterations and next generation warehouse. This is our 8th generation warehouse. And the difference here, and I'll try this pointer, see if it works, those orange devices, Kiva robots, that are then controlled centrally within the distribution center, and the data is being processed in the cloud. But what has changed is instead of the people running around, robots, they can pick up those whole shells up to 2,000 pounds a piece and rotate and bring them to the associate. So you can see the So you can see the tire tracks here of it running around. None of the people are allowed, or the associates are allowed to work here anymore. They're actually running on the side, so here on these mats. And it further optimizes improvement, because one of the things we always constantly do is virtual inventory and matching it up with physical inventory, as well as placing the products. So those are aspects of where we're constantly innovating on behalf of the customer, where you may not recognize that innovation is constantly happening, but it's to make sure your orders are accurate, faster, and on time. Also, within the Amazon.com website, one of the things that is innovative about the website in the beginning, other than like the one-click or the buy now, is the fact of user reviews and being able to have that online, like I was saying before, the process of discovery, of finding new products. User reviews was a specific innovation in the fact that we were allowing customers, either good or bad, write product reviews of the products that we were trying to sell online. And a lot of the publishers didn't like that regarding the books, if the books weren't selling as well. But what we really wanted to do is give that true information to the customer, and being customer focused, ensuring that they are most well informed about the products, so that they can trust Amazon when they want to make a purchase decision, that they come to this platform. Also, the Amazon Echo. So if you're familiar with Lean Startup, or Eric Ries talking about a minimal viable product, what's the product you can take to the market and then iterate on it? We also have a concept that's in addition to that, minimal lovable product. What is the key feature that the customer, once they understand what that product will do, will compel them to try Amazon's products or services? And so with the Amazon Echo, that initial compelling product service was the fact that you could just talk to it and play any song that was part of your accounts within your cloud account, such as Pandora or Amazon Prime Music. But we kept iterating on it, we kept inventing, and we listened to our customers, and we enabled third-party skills. So we have over 30,000 developers adding new skills to the Echo platform today. All of that is using machine learning, but it's actually being processed in the cloud, and all the updates are streaming back down into the Echo device. So you don't actually have to update the Echo device yourself. It's doing it through the cloud. So show of hands, have you ever gone into a store, picked up something, and just walked out of it? Anyone? Okay, what? Okay. I have, because I went to the Amazon Go store and enjoyed the checkout list experience, or you just go. And so the idea here is you go in with the QR code that's tied to your Amazon account, you scan it in, it recognizes your account, there's cameras all over and sensors fused all throughout the shelves, so it knows what you pick up, it knows what you're walking around, and you can put it in an Amazon Go bag and just walk out. You don't have to wait in line in front of someone that's trying to write a check. You just walk out. A couple of things, though, is, which I thought was kind of interesting, that if, say, Paul and I were walking in the store, and Paul asked me to hand him a Gatorade bottle, and I handed it to him, I'd get charged for it, not him. So it's tracking me, because everyone who goes in is tracked to an account. The other thing, it's very popular in Seattle. It's in downtown Seattle. One of the things we've got to iterate on is the check-in experience, because sometimes the lines are very long. One of the things I also want to mention, that there are humans in there. but they're making the sandwiches, they're answering the questions, they're doing more of the higher value services versus just checking you out. And all of those, that video and the analytics, the video recognition is all being processed and put into AWS. All right, so those are some of the innovations that we've done within Amazon. So how do we get to those points? How do we get to designing and producing all these different types of innovations? First, I'll talk about our beliefs of building a culture of innovation, our values, and then I'll also talk about how do we organize for innovation and actually run it within our company. So hopefully you can take some of these nuggets and see how it could fit within how you would operate within your own company. One is customer obsession, and that's the key leadership principle within Amazon. We start every process with the customer, and we work backwards. We always think of the customer in mind. In early days of Amazon meetings, we would always have an empty chair to represent the voice of the customer. So when we're making key business decisions or investment decisions, we're always thinking with the customer in mind. Long-term thinking. Be stubborn on the vision, but flexible on the details, and I'll provide an example in a little bit. Also, if you want to be inventive, you have to be willing to fail. We're willing to go down a bunch of dark alleys, try things out, say we don't know and we need the research to figure it out, but we're willing to experiment. And you have to be willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time. And I'll give you some key examples of being misunderstood within Amazon. The other aspect here is when we think of creating a platform, creating a service, understanding what is your growth flywheel? What is your virtuous loop? What are things like what Jeff was asked, what's going to happen in 10 years, Jeff? He goes, another interesting question besides that is what's not going to change in 10 years? What are things that if I keep investing in, that if I make innovations in that department, put those energies in that department, it's still going to keep growing the business. And so I'll give you an example here, like with what he was saying is, Jeff, the customer's not going to come to him and say 10 years from now, I wish the product was more expensive. I wish it took it longer, or I wish it was wrong, or I wish you sent me the wrong thing, right? So those are the things that we know if we can keep investing in, or with AWS, right? We want to make things more secure. We can keep investing in those type of platform. So with this virtuous loop within Amazon.com, we'll start with selection. So if you put energy and investment in selection, you improve the customer experience. Improving the customer experience will increase traffic on your platform. More traffic, you'll attract more sellers, which also add more selection to your platform, which improves the growth, increases the growth. With increased growth, you then have a lower cost structure, you have economies of scale, you have vendor buying power, of which then those efficiencies come in the form of lower prices to customers. Those lower prices then improve the customer experience. So as you can see, over time, if we keep adding energy into these different areas of the flywheel, it will keep growing and growing. We'll put that in the context of Amazon Prime. One is solving the problem of shipping and not knowing how much things would cost when you shipped. It was a big barrier to e-commerce in the early 2000s. And so we iterated on this many times with Subscriber Savers Club. If you paid at least $75, then you'd get free shipping. But we created this Amazon Prime program with a subscription. So I've got to ask, show of hands, who's a member of Prime? All right, so I'm not going to sell Prime, I promise. You guys could sell me Prime. But in the context of the growth flywheel, we keep adding more and more value to it. So one example is if you wanted to be that third-party seller and selling your products on Amazon, we have a service called Fulfillment by Amazon, that if you have Amazon hold your inventory, ship it when you sell it, and provide all the labeling and the tracking, then your products then, because they're in Amazon's fulfillment centers, are eligible as Prime products. And I don't know about you, but I certainly do it. When I shop on Amazon, I filter by Prime, because I don't want to have to worry it's going to take 2 weeks long, right? So it adds more energy into our fulfillment business by having this Prime type service. Another access way of building that flywheel is Prime Now. So we created this Prime Now to solve the problem of what if I need the product in an hour? So we're massive UPS and FedEx customers in terms of shipping, but it's hard to also get maybe the Postal Service to say, can you deliver this in an hour for me? So we had to use couriers, or we created basically a new service to empower others, is Amazon Flex. So Amazon Flex is basically you go and you sign up and you drive packages for Amazon, and that kind of helps support the Amazon Prime program. Actually, a note for Prime, Jeff kept saying in terms of the virtuous flywheel with Prime that we want to make Prime so valuable and keep adding more features to it that you're doing you and your family a disservice by not being a subscriber. We just constantly want to keep adding value. And so this helps spin off other new businesses. So interesting, I was at AWS Summit in Chicago, and it was at the end of the day, I was taking an Uber back to my hotel, and he's asking me, what company are you from, or what was the event? And I was saying I was at the Amazon Web Services Summit. He goes, oh, I work for Amazon. I'm like, you do? I thought you were an Uber driver. He goes, well, I'm also an Amazon Flex driver. So when I get tired of talking to people in my Uber, I turn that sign off, and now I'm an Amazon package delivery guy. So I think I was maybe his last guy for the day. So I was talking about some of our beliefs, stubborn on the vision, but flexible on the details. Kindle was something that we were very stubborn on the vision for, but we kept iterating and making it better. And the minimal lovable kind of feature of the Kindle product was the fact that it had 3G built in. You didn't have to have a cell phone service, but if you had 3G, you could download any book that Amazon sold on the Kindle within 60 seconds. And this was done in the early 2007 timeframe, where we didn't have Wi-Fi everywhere. We didn't have 4G LTE. We also didn't have very good ebook readers, and it was a nascent market back then. But we believed in the product. We also had a lot of data with how customers were reading books. And customers had given us feedback that they wanted to be able to have something like this. It looks a little clunky. You can see it's kind of like the BlackBerry interface. But we got the feature out there. We didn't try to make it perfect right away, but we wanted to make it a compelling product that users would find interesting. And then over the years, this is 10 years later, we have the Paperwhite version, which is basically very clean. It can hold thousands of books. It can last for weeks without battery power. It's got this e-ink technology that makes it look like paper. And one of the beauties, so I have two of them, one for my wife and my son. And one of the benefits of this is the fact that it has no other apps. So I personally read my Kindle on my iPhone, but the fact that it has no apps, he can't play his games. He's got to read his books, and we're able to check on him. So, willingness to be misunderstood for a long period of time. I think the poster child of that is AWS. Maybe you could also argue that the first few years within Amazon, we were not posting a Wall Street type profit. They considering us a nonprofit, actually, Amazon.org, because we were being misunderstood. We realized it was better to service our customers, build out the infrastructure worldwide, and we were focused on building that kind of revenue and creating that new industry of e-commerce. A similar approach was to cloud computing. So on the left is Business Week. I think it's November 2006. It was a few months after we launched S3 and EC2 for the beginnings of Amazon Web Services. But what it says here is maybe a little dithered, but CEO Jeff Bezos wants to run your business with his web technology. Wall Street wishes he would just mind the store. Like, stick to your knitting. You're already good at selling stuff online. Why are you trying to get into the data center business? They didn't realize the advent of cloud computing and the real advantages, and I won't have to sell you on that. That's not my part of this session. But on the right-hand side, 10 years later, so willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time, now we're Wall Street darlings in terms of the business value that we're bringing, the transformational nature of cloud computing. Sorry? Okay, so talked about our beliefs, gave some examples of our beliefs. Now, how do we organize? How do we actually go about doing it? All right, I'll talk about 4 main factors of innovation. All right. Mechanisms, architecture, culture, and organization. A note on mechanisms. One of the things Jeff had mentioned is that good intentions aren't good enough. We have a lot of smart, passionate senior managers, and just having good intentions to do something repeatable, scalable, measurable, impactful, you can't do that just on good intentions. You have to have a mechanism. And so in the case of innovation within Amazon, our mechanism is called the working backwards process, and I'll go through that. So first, again, to our belief, always work backwards from the customer. How do we get to this type of experience? When we come up with a new idea at Amazon and we think it's something that we should invest in, we don't write the code. We don't build up mock-ups. What we do is we write a press release. We give it a title, we give it a byline of whatever the impactful value it's going to be. What is a senior leader quote? What would Jeff say about this service if he was talking about it publicly? What would a customer say about it? So you write the press release. So it's not a real marketing press release, but what it is, it's a vision document. It's starting with the customer experience you're trying to drive, and then working backwards from it. And it's a living document. It goes through many iterations, but that is the genesis of an idea that we actually want to invest in. But that's not the only part of the working backwards process. So another aspect, in addition to writing the press release, I'll get into that in just a second. What you want to do with the press release is you want to answer these key customer questions. We have 5. It's a picture of our lanyard. We have new lanyards now, but our old style lanyards, we'd have this sticker, so all Amazonians would have this to stick on their identity badge. But the working backwards questions are, who's the customer? What is the customer problem or the opportunity? Is that most important benefit clear to the customer if they read that? How do you know that the customers need or want it? What is the qualitative, maybe in surveys, or quantitative data that you have? We're a very data-driven company, so we would ask, how could you prove that this would be a viable idea? And what does the customer experience look like? So these are the basic foundational questions that we would want to answer in doing the working backwards process. So one area where that manifests is writing the press release, but also we include frequently asked questions, and we have 2 types. One is the customer FAQs. Those are the external facing ones. What would the customer want to know about the product? How much will it cost? What kind of type of support would I get? Where can I find this? How do I cancel it? How do I return it? Very customer facing questions that want to learn about that product. Then we have what's called stakeholder FAQs, which are internal, executive level questions that you want to answer. All right, what's the underlying technology? What would be customers most disappointed about what in your initial release? Maybe for the Kindle, it's big and clunky. It's the size of a hardback, a hardcover book. But those are the types of things that you would try to address. What we also say is include the hard questions. We have another leadership principle of earning trust. And you earn trust with your senior leaders by admitting that this is a hard question. I didn't omit it because I didn't know the answer to it. I'm bringing it up. This is something that I need to experiment on. I need to get more data. I'll come back to you on it. And so we want to be able to pre-populate the FAQ with hard questions that we don't know the answers to yet, but it kind of sets the roadmap of where we want to experiment. And then share your press release early and often to gather questions and to collaborate with your peers and get what their ideas are as well. So 2 FAQs, and then as well as the press release. And then we write or draw up the visualizations and the user manual. And the idea is you really thought through this problem. And we have an axiom that the fidelity of the visualizations should match to the maturity of your idea. So in the beginning, it could be stick figures on a whiteboard that you took a picture of with your cell phone. Then as you advance, it could be wireframes or storyboards with actual comic book feel. You can get more and more involved with it. Like I said, it's a living document, and as you go through the working backwards process, it's very iterative, so you can improve on it as you go. So, someone asked Jeff at his all hands, because remember, you come up with a new idea, a press release, which is kind of hard to do, to be very succinct in like 2 or 3 paragraphs about what you're trying to do, especially if it's something new. you got to write those FAQs, you're drawing the interactions, and writing a manual. So someone asked him, do we have to do this? So here's what he had to say, and hopefully audio will work.
Is the working backwards process optional? It sounds great, but it seems like a lot of work. Oh boy, how do we begin? The working backwards process should not be optional unless you know a better way. And you shouldn't know a better way until you've tried the working backwards process several times. The working backwards process really does work. And this particular thing here, it sounds great, but it seems like a lot of work. Done correctly, the working backwards process is a huge amount of work, but it saves you even more work later. The working backwards process is not designed to be easy. It's designed to save huge amounts of work on the back end and to make sure that we're actually building the right thing. What so many companies do is they write the software. That's a lot of work. They get it all working, and then they throw it over the wall to the marketing department and say, okay, here's what we built. Write the press release for it. That process is the one that's actually backwards.
So the answer is yes, you got to do it. So that's the next factor. So that's our mechanisms for innovation. So it's a common language and a common methodology that throughout the world, as we're coming up with innovations, we have the same way of bringing up our ideas. Now, say you get the press release approved and say, let's go forward with it. How do you build it? What are we going to build on? So part of our culture of innovation and organizing for it is to provide an architecture. I won't read the whole quote, but basically what I want to bring out is that we decentralized the distribution of invention. It's not just to the company's senior leaders. It's to everyone within Amazon. Anyone can write a press release. And actually, a lot of us are challenged to think big and come up with those ideas. But we get to work in the future. And so you need a toolbox or a toolkit and an architecture in order to be able to do it. Just a little micro history of Amazon.com. You can see a very enterprise-looking architecture for the platform in the early days for our retail business. But it was a large monolith, and it couldn't scale as fast as we needed to scale to allow third-party sellers onto the platform. And so we ended up coming up with service-oriented architecture and actually implementing it with a lot of different services that are single purpose. So if you actually load up the Amazon.com website, it's actually 300 to 400 different web services that are being queried to be able to bring that up. If it's recommendations, user reviews, zip code lookups, product searching, you name it. So those are all stitched together now. And they connect only through APIs, and they're hardened, they're independently secure and scalable, and basically implementing a microservices or service-oriented architecture. But this didn't come overnight. It came with a lot of growing pains. And part of that was we kept hiring more engineers to build these services, and it was still taking a long time. It's very familiar, but it took the developers 70% of their time to set up the servers, to get the networking, to do the operating system, to do the patches, and actually getting the environment running, that they weren't actually innovating as fast as you've probably heard this story a lot with cloud computing. So we decided, how can we create an architecture internally? So in the early 2000s, we built where we could have these APIs to not only build the service for the Amazon.com, but also for web services or infrastructure, compute, networking on demand. And with that, we've created this self-service platform that allows thousands of people to boldly experiment, not just Amazon.com or Amazon Web Services, but all of our partners and customers that use the platform. This is an eye chart, I admit. It's just basically showing the breadth and depth of our platform. It's not just compute and storage anymore. We launched Amazon Web Services in 2006, but it had been 6 years in the making, and over the last 12 years, we have built a very robust platform for millions of different customers and different use cases. but it provides a comprehensive toolkit for our builders and enabling them to build. So this is the architecture that we use. So when I talk about Echo or Amazon.com and the fulfillment center and Amazon Go, all of that is at some capability is using the cloud or AWS to do it. And in each of those teams, they don't have to rebuild their own data centers to come up with those ideas. They're just able to tap into AWS to do it. Here's some public sector innovations powered by AWS. Digital Globe had put 70 petabytes of data using the Snowmobile, which is our 18-wheeler ability. So if you guys have 70 petabytes of data, we have an 18-wheeler for you. FINRA is another great example. They're also featured in the keynote, but they analyze over 75 billion financial transactions daily to check for anomalies. But all these public sector customers have found that using this architecture to improve public sector initiatives. So now we'll move on to culture and our people. We hire builders and innovators and entrepreneurs. We have a spirit of entrepreneurship within Amazon. And then our beliefs of the types of people that we hire. So it may be a little bit harder to see, and these are public, so you can look them up online as well. The Amazon leadership principles. And so we always seek a diverse employee base. We have over 560,000 employees within Amazon worldwide. So a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different skill sets. But the common thread across all of them and when they come into Amazon is that they believe and exhibit these leadership principles. So I've talked about a couple of them, customer obsession and thinking big. We have one for delivering results or a bias for action, right? So wanting to be able to do that. Insisting on the highest standards. So if you look at Jeff Bezos' latest shareholder letter, he has a great story about insisting on the highest standards. But these are principles that we check, and we have mechanisms of how we hire folks, and we measure them, and we ask questions where they can exhibit and show where they raise the bar on showing these and exhibiting these leadership principles. So those are the types of people that we want working at Amazon. And then organization. So now that we have the people, we have the tools, we have the go-ahead with the press release, how do we actually organize and do it? One is also to have this tolerance for failure. So one of my favorite quotes that he had within a shareholder letter is that I believe we are the best place in the world to fail. We have had plenty of practice, and failure and invention are inseparable twins. If you knew in advance that an experiment was going to work, it's not an experiment, right? We also have this concept of one-way doors and two-way doors. One-way doors are irreversible decisions. Two-way doors is you could try something, it didn't work, you could come back out of it. We want to break things down into a series of two-way doors. If it's a one-way door, like where we're going to put a region or something like that, that has senior-level decision-making requirements. But if it's something that you want to experiment and you want to try something new, and that if it doesn't work, we'll pull back, then that's fine. We know that most experiments won't work. If you want to, it's basically the cost of innovating is the fact that you can do more experiments. But I won't go through all of this, but he gives an analogy of baseball where if you hit a home run in baseball, you could strike out tons of times, but if you hit a home run, the most runs you can score is 4 runs. But in business, it's asymmetric between the benefit that you can possibly get and the type of experiments that you can do. So say you strike out 100 times, but if you do hit a home run, that home run could not just be 4 runs, it could be 1,000 runs, right? It could be a next billion-dollar business. So we're always trying to invest in areas where we can get to that scale. But we have failed, and here's some key examples of our failures that are more public. And we've learned from those failures, and it's helped inform how we've innovated in other areas. In both, for Amazon Auction, we were trying to compete with eBay. We weren't being as competitor, we were being more competitor-focused than customer-focused. eBay was the leader in online auctions. So you can tell from Amazon's websites, we don't have an auction site anymore. But prior to that, we only really sold things that we bought and resold. But by doing Amazon auctions, we realized the business of having third-party sellers on the platform, in which we did enable that. And so it put pressure on our system. We pulled back from Amazon Marketplace, but auctions. But with the marketplace, we add third-party sellers. And those third-party sellers helped us move on to AWS and building a platform that can handle all those API requests from them. And then also for Firephone. Firephone, I don't know if you've ever seen one. I think I've seen one once, but it's not around anymore for the most part. But we learned how to build very complex hardware. We also learned how to have Alexa to kind of compete with like the likes of Siri. And those things have now transformed and been put into the Alexa and Alexa voice service and the Echo product line. And we also do 2 pizza teams. So with 2 pizza teams, basically it's how many people that you would feed with 2 pizzas. So it depends on the size of pizza, how hungry the folks are, but really 4 to 10 folks. Anything over 11 or more, you see exponential increase in latency of collaboration. And literally, you're staying on the same page. That's all you're doing with those large teams. So we want to have a single-threaded focus with a leader that owns that 2 pizza team. There's thousands of 2 pizza teams within Amazon. Each of our web services has 2 pizza teams. And you build it, you own it. So we foster ownership and autonomy. And that helps us with our innovation, having leadership over there. Okay? And so innovation at the edge. So we let all of our employees, we give them the ability to innovate, and we give them the tools, and we give them the mechanisms to be able to do it. But what we like to do is how can we do it with our customers and our partners? If people are interested in innovating like Amazon, and let's build something that people love together. And we can explore the innovation principles at Amazon. We can define a new service or experience that will delight your customers. And then build a prototype or a digital experience together, leveraging some of the principles that we do and the mechanisms that we have. And we do that at a cloud innovation center, where we can try to enable everyone to innovate, but doing it to help public sector initiatives and problems, and being able to use the power of technology to solve issues, say, within smart cities or smart agriculture. The list could go on. And so what I like to do is invite Paul Jurasin from our Cal Poly Cloud Innovation Center, called the Digital Transformation Hub, to talk more about specifically how we've been working together for the last year or so. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Ben.
Sit here, out of your way.
So Ben laid out a great description of what innovation at Amazon looks like. AWS and Cal Poly put together a program that we're really excited about, and that program really combines the efforts that Amazon has put together under innovation. It brings together the students and faculty of Cal Poly at the university, and it allows us to do innovation for the public sector, and I'll describe that a little bit as we move forward. Some of the things that we're trying to do at the digital, we call the Innovation Center the Cal Poly Digital Transformation Hub, powered by AWS. I'm actually going to move forward a little bit. Oops, wrong way.
Oh, it's the green one, yeah.
Yep. So the Cal Poly Digital Transformation Hub, powered by AWS, is a joint effort between AWS and Cal Poly, where we have folks from Cal Poly employees and AWS employees working together to work on public sector challenges. So challenges that the public sector organizations in education, in government, and in nonprofits might have, right? So what we're doing is bringing together the subject matter expertise that the public sector has. So we know that in the public sector, there's lots of deep subject matter expertise. You just saw all of the capabilities of Amazon innovation, and there's the cloud technology part of things too that we can bring together. When we bring all 3 of those things together, we can come up with solutions that we had not thought about before, right? So the deep subject matter expertise folks in the government they know everything there is to know about what their problem is, but they might not know everything there is to know about emerging technologies. And they also might not know those proven innovation techniques that Amazon has. When we bring those together, it's pretty powerful. So again, the goals that we are trying to solve with the Digital Transformation Hub are to lower costs for public sector organizations. So we want to be able to be more agile. We want to be able to do testing and analysis and investigation on new technologies we might not have been able to do before, because it costs a lot of money to go out and buy on-premise hardware and get that all set up to run. In the cloud, you can spin up your servers and your cloud technologies quickly. You can test. If it fails, it's not a big deal. you just start again, right? So we're trying to lower costs to develop these kinds of products. We're trying to expand technology options because you're all here, right? So you know how many products AWS has out there. So what we want to be able to do is apply some of those technologies to the public sector challenges that they have out there. I'm going to skip the spur economic development to the last here. What we want to also do is accelerate replicable successes. So if we can solve a challenge for one public sector organization, whether it's in law enforcement or it's in climate change or whatever it might be, it's likely that same challenge is being affected in lots of different places, right? So we can apply that same solution to lots of public sector organizations. When we do our challenge process, and I'll go through that here in a second, when we get to the end of it, we publish the results of that solution in open source so anybody can use it, right? We don't want to have everybody trying to solve that same problem multiple times. So we're trying to really look at how we can apply solutions across a wide spectrum. We also want to improve student experience, and what we really mean here is public experience with using technology. But in our case at Cal Poly, what we try to do is incorporate students in the problem-solving process, right? Because what we really want to be able to do is give our students real-world problem-solving experience, or they can take that out into the workforce and apply that when they get out of school. So the spur economic development portion, when I just mentioned that we publish what the solution result is when we get to the end of our process, that doesn't include the implementation part of it, right? So when we publish that solution, someone else can take that solution and go and implement it, right? So somebody might want to start a company that implements that solution that we came up with, whatever problem that might be. So I'm going to read this quote here because I think this kind of describes what we do at the Cal Poly Digital Transformation Hub. So the Cal Poly Digital Transformation Hub applies proven innovation methodologies in combination with the deep subject matter expertise of the public sector and the technology expertise of AWS and its partners to solve real-world problems in ways not contemplated before. That's really, I think, that really sums up what we're trying to do at the Digital Transformation Hub. And what we're doing by doing this is we're combining both the educational side of things and the AWS technology side of things to create solutions that we think are very innovative and may not have been thought of before. The diagram you see on the screen is just a kind of a sample of the kinds of things that we look at the Digital Transformation Hub. So we might be looking at agricultural problems, we might be looking at human trafficking problems, we might be looking at law enforcement problems. The public sector has lots of issues that need solutions, and that's what we're working on here. So Ben talked a lot about the innovation process and the working backwards process that AWS uses. This is kind of an overview of how we do our challenges at the Digital Transformation Hub. As you can see, there's a 5-step process. The identify stage is where we talk to our public sector customers to see if they have interest in the kinds of innovation that we're working on. This is really the introduction to what the Digital Transformation Hub does. Then we have an engage phase, and that engage phase, we talk about what is digital innovation? Is this really going to work for what you guys want to do? And then we try to frame that challenge. So we don't want to work on challenges that are so big that it's going to take us 5 years to solve. We really want to get to that solution pretty quickly. And then we also don't want that challenge to be so small that it doesn't have much impact. So if it's only solving a small problem for a single agency, that's not really what we want to be doing. We want to be solving a problem that has implications across the government or across the public sector, so we can implement that across multiple organizations. So then once the agency decides that, yeah, this is what we want to do, we go to the define stage. And the define stage for us is really that working backwards process that Ben talked about. So we do workshops, we define an innovation community with our customer, which are the stakeholders and the people who are really interested and can help come up with a solution to these problems. We have an executive sponsor that we always have for everything we do, and then we do the solutions workshops, which is the working backwards process. We move forward then from that to the prototyping phase. Ben talked about that with the pictures he had on the screen. And in the prototyping stage, we're really trying to bring the ideas to life that we've come up with in the define stage, right? Remember, in the define stage is where we're doing that PR FAQ, that press release with all those FAQs, so we're really defining what it is that we're trying to solve. And then in the prototype stage, we're bringing that to life. Once we get through the prototype stage, then we publish a document that defines what that solution looks like, what it might take to implement that solution, and we hand that over to the customer that submitted the challenge in the first place. And then we publish that solution out in open source so anyone can use it. So that's really our process that we're putting together here. If you have questions, you can see my contact information here. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have. Phone number's on there as well. Please call me. And I'm going to hand this back to Ben because I think he's got a couple more things to say.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it. Yeah. It's been an exciting year working with Paul and setting up the Digital Transformation Hub. And yeah, I look forward also on the web as well. So I've gone through the 4 factors of how we organize for innovation. And I'll share a secret with you. This is it. This is the equation for innovation. You just do this and you get a lot of innovation running out of it. No, I'm just kidding. So with organization, basically, we're engineers. And so we try to just model it within an equation, but please don't take it literally. But the idea of 2 pizza teams using AWS as its architecture, empowered by both its mechanisms of the working backwards process and how we hire, and then our culture with our leadership principles. These are the areas that we focus energy around, that we know if we keep investing in that energy, we're going to get it's been proven to us that we're going to get innovations that customers love. So just from a philosophy perspective, Jeff has said we've had 3 big ideas at Amazon that we've stuck by with for 20 plus years. Put the customer first, be customer obsessed, invent on their behalf, right? Think big, deliver the results there, and be patient, be willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time. Because we know it's not what Wall Street says, it's not what the media says, it's what our customers say. And then I'll go back to day 1. So day 1 is a motto, it's always day 1 at Amazon. We want to be a nonstop startup. We want to have that entrepreneurial spirit. We support startups in both public sector and the commercial business. Even though we're a large multi-billion-dollar enterprise, it's always day 1 for us. We're always looking and trying to earn our customers' trust and value and provide value for them every second of every day. And so as a symbol of that, wherever Jeff's office is, that building is renamed Day 1 North. It's kind of like a guiding star. So someone has asked him at another all hands, well, if we're day 1, what does day 2 look like? And so he had an answer for that.
Okay, I think this one is a very important question. What does day 2 look like? What does day 2 look like? I know the answer to this. Day 2 is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death. And that is why it is always day 1. Thank you, you guys.
And with that, I'd like to thank you as well. So I hope we can innovate together. Here's some of my contact information. Please connect with me. And I think we have about a minute left. So if anyone has a question, I'll try to answer that. And then if we have more questions, I can stand out in the hall for a few minutes.
Yes, hi, I don't know if it's question, live. Sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, he was at the mic. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to know what is the percentage of pitches or new ideas that you present to Jeff, and what is the percentage that gets thrown out and versus moved to production?
You know what? I don't know if it's tracked that way in terms of percentages, but I would say it's literally, you know, thousands of documents that get through. We have certain mechanisms within how we review those documents and a certain process, but I couldn't tell you in terms of low percentage, but I would say, depending how things are scoped, a lot of things get passed through because we want to experiment, but I don't know what the percentage of what hits or versus what misses, so to speak. Okay. This gentleman did have a question, and then I'll
So real quick, what is the mechanism for the ideas or the prototypes being noted by the people up the chain that eventually shows up on the Amazon.com platform?
So within Amazon, I can at least talk about AWS because I was a product marketing manager for Kinesis, which was one of our big data products. But there's internal reviews within the different product teams because one of the benefits is Amazon.com, we treat them like a customer. They're a separate entity in terms of we treat Amazon.com as we treat Netflix as a high customer. They give us a lot of feedback. We have private beta previews. And then we have limited previews that go out to the public. So there's a staged approach, especially if it's a new type of product, and being able to fully unleash that. But it doesn't even get to that stage because, we don't usually pull back from that stage. What we end up doing is iterating and adding new features that maybe we didn't think of from before. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and learning a little bit about the innovation at Amazon. Thank you.